The days are finally longer and the flowers are in full bloom. It must be time for the Washington State Spring Fair. Celebrate the return of warmer days by popping on over to Puyallup the weekend of April 10th to 12th and 17th to 19th. Seek thrills on the festival rides, try your hand at carnival games, see some adorable animals, and, my personal favorite, eat too much funnel cake. You can get your tickets at thefair.com, and kids 5 and under are always free, so you can bring the whole family. This is CityCast Seattle. I'm Jane C. Hu, and here's what Seattle's talking about. Measles is on the rise again, and it's now come to King County as well as an itchy fungus. We'll get into all that and also some listener emails in our Monday mailbag. But first, boycotts and divestments are a big topic when it comes to personal purchase decisions and investment of taxpayer dollars. Last month, the Washington State Operating Fund made a consequential change to its investments. Our state treasurer made the decision to sell $62 million in corporate bonds from the company Caterpillar before they reached maturity. That decision came after Treasurer Mike Pelliciotti met with a group of advocates who brought the holdings to his attention. Among them was Deanna Fakori, who is a director of the Rachel Corrie Foundation, co-founder of Washington for Peace and Justice, and a Seattle artist. Welcome, Deanna.
Thank you so much.
So last month's decision to sell all of these bonds came after an ESG, so environmental, social, and governance analysis by the state treasurer's office. Deanna, what is an ESG screening and how do these play into the state treasurer's investment decisions?
Yeah, the ESG, as you mentioned, environmental, social, and governance factors, is meant to be a screening for investors to consider these factors when they're deciding on their investments. So, for example, actually, Mike Pelliciotti adopted an ESG framework when he first began as governor in 2021. And at that time, he divested from fossil fuels. So oftentimes investors focus on the environmental factors as, obviously like climate change is a big issue and already destroying our planet, but they tend to kind of ignore the social and governance factors. And so when we met with the treasurer and found that he was really interested in ESG and very proud of his portfolio and his ESG screening, once we found out that he had Caterpillar bonds, we brought that to his attention like, hey, this should be screened out, and it's not.
So I know right now there's a lot of discussion of other companies in our region that are also involved in making weapons of war here in Washington, including Boeing. Why is Caterpillar the company that you all have been focused on lately?
We've actually been focused on a much wider set of companies. Our primary focus has been the Washington State Investment Board that invests state employees' pension funds. They also invest money for Washington State's Get Fund, which is like a college savings account, and other things. And they hold over $1 billion in over 50 companies that are complicit in the genocide or occupation of Palestine. We started to meet with the treasurer because he's one of the members of the Washington State Investment Board. So initially we met with him just to talk to him about all of these companies and our concerns. And then we found out that he invests the state's operating funds. And when we asked for more details there, we initially asked if he has Israel bonds, which he doesn't. But then when we went through his corporate bonds, we found that Caterpillar was there. And Caterpillar was the only company in his holdings that was part of the BDS shortlist. That's why we focused on getting him to divest from Caterpillar.
So tell us a little bit about why you all were pushing for Caterpillar to be removed from the portfolio of bonds that we have.
Caterpillar has a long history of human rights abuses and terrible practices throughout the world, primarily in Palestine. Our campaign, Cut Ties with Genocide, focuses on Palestinian liberation, and companies that are complicit in the genocide and ethnic cleansing and illegal occupation of Palestine. Caterpillar also locally has an impact because in 2003, Rachel Corrie was crushed to death by a Caterpillar bulldozer that was operated by 2 Israeli soldiers in Gaza. And since that time, her family had never received justice or accountability in her murder. And she was a US citizen. She was a Washingtonian, born and raised in Olympia, and was standing to try to prevent demolition of Palestinian home in Gaza. Caterpillar has been used in the West Bank, I think, since 1967 to destroy Palestinian homes and infrastructure, and obviously in Gaza as well, and has been also found to have crushed Palestinians to death as well.
I guess my question is this company aware of what folks are using their machinery for? I guess I know of Caterpillar mostly as, they sell construction equipment. And my question is, has this been brought to their attention? And how are they coordinating with these groups that are using their machinery in this way?
So the Caterpillar bulldozers that we talk about and focus on as part of the issues in Palestine are actually not the type of Caterpillar machinery that we see, as we're driving by farmland or whatever. They are militarized bulldozers. They are given to Israel as part of their military aid at taxpayer expense. The company definitely knows the Coreys. Rachel Corey's parents, Craig and Cindy, have had a history of trying to receive accountability from Caterpillar, including a lawsuit, including going to shareholder meetings. Others as well have tried to bring this to attention. They are aware about it, and they are not responsive to public feedback.
Gotcha. So I know the treasurer has said that he wasn't making an ethical decision here, just one based on the inherent risk of continuing to invest in Caterpillar. Why are they a risky investment? And what do you think of that explanation?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It makes sense that he would say that because he's not supposed to make ethical considerations in his investments. However, the reason that they are saying that it's a financially risky investment is because there has been a series of divestments of Caterpillar in the last year. There was, I believe, over $30 million divested in Alameda County in California. There was, I think, $2 billion divested by the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is the largest pension fund in the world. And then there was another over $400 million divested by a Dutch pension fund. And that was all in 2025. So you see that there's this wave of divestment, and all of those divestments were made based on ethical considerations. So really underlying the financial risk is the ethical.
That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, okay, so now the operating funds, you kind of alluded to this, are considered clean. What does that mean? And is this a standard that can be applied to the rest of state funds?
Yeah, so it means that the operating funds have no investments in companies on the BDS shortlist, the Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions list. And I hope that it will be replicated in other investments. I think the Washington State Investment Board thus far has not been very responsive to us, but we're going to continue to try to push there for legislation that will force them to create an ESG framework for their investments. I would also encourage folks to start to look at their local city and county investments and see if there's more to be done there. Actually, just last week, the Olympia City Council voted for an ethical investment policy. So their funds will be clean shortly as well.
I think a lot of people are interested in, at least personally, trying to make sure that they are investing in kind of ESG funds. Is there anything that you recommend people look at as a resource or think about as they're thinking about how to invest their own money?
Yeah, there's so many resources and so many companies. My go-to is the BDS. I believe the website is bdsmovement.net. They are kind of at the forefront of consumer boycotts. So they have lists there, and there is a short list of companies and then a wider list of companies that have started as like consumer boycotts. So like McDonald's and Starbucks, and Spotify actually recently joined the BDS list. I just canceled it.
I did that about a year
an
ago,
alternative.
actually, and I have not looked back. I don't know that there are that many great alternatives, but, it's one small thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm on the lookout for alternatives. Oh, Chevron is another one. Easy for folks to avoid and has a history of complicity. Yeah, definitely check out BDS. I'll also plug the American Friends Service Committee. They are the ones that have helped us define what companies we should target based on a criteria of like how responsive the company is, like how severe their human rights violations are for our divestment campaign.
Deanna Fakori, thank you so much for joining us today. If folks want to find out more about your work, especially at the Rachel Corrie Foundation, where can they find that?
So rachelcorriefoundation.org. I would also love to plug the Cut Ties with Genocide campaign. So that website is cut-ties.org. And we have a petition there for Washingtonians to sign on. Would love for folks to do that.
Thank you so much, Deanna.
Thank you.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're talking about measles. When I first moved to Seattle, Town Hall was my lifeline to the city. I went to book talks, panels with interesting local thinkers, and even a concert. If you're looking for something fun to do or to learn something new, you'll find something going on nearly every night of the week at Town Hall, with events spanning civics, science, and arts and culture. They're a nonprofit with a mission to amplify ideas, foster discourse, and connect people through events. And what I love most about Town Hall is that their events are produced by and for the community, and I think that really shines through in their programming. Tickets to most of their events are offered on a sliding scale, and if you're under 22, you're in luck. They even have free tickets for you. If you haven't been, they're located in this gorgeous historic building on First Hill. And on Monday, April 13th, the team from NPR's Planet Money podcast is going to be there with media producer and everyone's TikTok crush, Jack Corbett, and Redfin economist Daryl Fairweather to discuss all things economics, from the silly to the sublime. Get tickets and view the full calendar of events at townhallseattle.org. We're back, and this week, the Washington Department of Health announced that there have been 2 confirmed cases of measles in King County. I've got a little flowchart here from the DOH about whether you need the vaccine. So Brett Hamill, writer-performer and the cartoonist behind the weekly series Doom Loop, were you born before 1957, or have you had measles?
No and no.
Have you previously received the measles vaccine?
I assume I have, maybe from some international travel to developing countries, but I'm not sure.
Did you get vaccinated before 1968?
Yes. No, I didn't. I got confused there. No, I did not. I'm old, but not that old.
But you did probably get vaccinated, you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Definitely.
Do you work in healthcare, participate as a student in post-high school education, travel internationally, have HIV, or live with someone who is immunocompromised?
Yeah, kind of.
You should probably get an additional dose of MMR if you haven't gotten 2. Just letting you know.
Okay.
We also have executive producer Ashley Smith.
I'm
Ashley,
confused now. That just made me paranoid. I don't know what they're
Yeah,
trying
right?
to do here.
Have you gotten your MMR vaccine?
I probably. Didn't you have to get it when you were a kid going to school?
Yes. So I will say, if you were born after, 1970, you are very likely to have just gotten it as part of your regular vaccination schedule. But I think there are a lot of people who are confused about whether they're up to date on their MMR because you don't always remember if you got the 2. It's probably somewhere deep in your records, but probably worth taking another look. 2 doses is now the recommended vaccination level. So I'll back up and say these 2 adults in King County who have been verified to have measles, they traveled internationally, and we actually don't know if they were vaccinated. But the Department of Health released information about how they traveled a whole bunch of places in our region. You can find out more on the county website, but it's kind of an interesting view into like what people did over the course of a weekend. It's like they hit up the Shoreline Costco and then they got a burger at the burger place. They went to some restaurants in Kirkland. They went to the Safeway, and then they went to a bunch of medical clinics because they were probably...
I like all my voyeurism to be delivered to me through King County Public Health.
It is kind of like the hottest goss. You're like, what was this person up to this weekend?
It is fascinating.
So we've had 31 cases of measles in 2026 in Washington state. Our nearby Snohomish County is currently the top of the leaderboard at 14 cases this year. It's worth noting that 26 of the 31 people who have gotten it are unvaccinated. The other 5, their vaccination status is unknown. That includes the 2 people who recently were confirmed to have gotten it in King County. I want to reiterate that no one who has gotten vaccinated so far is known to have gotten it in Washington state. The vaccine is known to be 97% effective. And this is, of course, part of just a bigger outbreak in the US. So in the last year and change, there have been 3,500 confirmed cases of measles, even though in 2000, health officials said that it had been eliminated in the US. But because people aren't getting vaccinated anymore, it's coming back.
I'm, first of all, just incandescently furious over these idiots that refuse to vaccinate their children. But the second thing, it just really underlines how horrible it is that what RFK is doing about the vaccine recommendations and stuff. Did I get the vaccine? I don't know. We did everything we were supposed to do. Through those official channels, my parents and then later me was recommended to do these things. If I had to go and find my records and like nail down when exactly I did it, I don't know. I just did what I was recommended to do, and so did my parents.
Also, the MMR vaccine is usually given, I think the first dose is usually given at about a year, and the second is given at like 4 years. So you probably weren't even like fully sentient at the point where you were fully vaccinated.
I don't know if I am fully sentient still.
So we might have already had 2 doses, Jane, as children?
Most likely if your parents did a good job.
I should text my mom.
The Trump administration is, however, trying to change the way that this vaccine works. So you might know that the measles vaccination is part of this MMR vaccination, which you all know what it stands for?
Measles, mumps, and rubella. Something
right.
I've learned in the Trump era.
Nice.
Uh-huh. Mumps is the funniest word for a disease. I know it's awful, but it's just such a silly... Anyway, MMR vaccine. So this joint vaccine came out in 1971. And now the Trump administration is trying to separate the MMR vaccine into 3 different shots. So like you get one for mumps, you get one for measles, and you get one for rubella. And health experts are saying that's actually going to make things worse, because the whole reason we came up with the one shot is because the more shots you make people get, the more likely it is that they'll miss the vaccine schedule. Like,
and if there's anything that children, parents of infants have, it's like loads of time to schedule multiple stacked appointments.
Exactly. Yeah. You're just creating more chances for people to potentially miss their appointments and creating a little bit more of a logistical headache. And health experts also say there's no data supports that separating these vaccines are somehow better. So that's fun.
Yeah, I don't really understand why they would do that. That doesn't make any sense. And I know like everything old is new again, but do we need to be bringing back measles? Like people are using iPods again. There's a lot of Y2K fashion happening. That's fine. We don't need measles again. Like what?
The best I can tell from my reading is that the supplement market is less regulated and far more lucrative than these traditional institutional medical care. So it's ultimately all pushing towards, buy my Nootics and try these new vitamins and such.
Oof, I don't know of any supplements that are really going to help with the measles, but what do you guys know about measles symptoms and transmission?
I think it's very infectious, right? Like when you are infectious, it's like very easy to pass it along. Is it just by touch?
It spreads through the air, but it can also live on surfaces for a few hours.
Okay.
So I saw one stat that was like, if you're in a room with a person who has measles, like 9 out of 10 people are going to get it. Like it is very,
Oh no.
it is very infectious. I mean, and you get all the typical symptoms of a thing that you don't want, like cough, fever, and then rash, which I think is probably the most signature symptom of measles. But I also learned that you can develop a whole bunch of complications if you don't get it taken care of, including brain inflammation, which can lead to seizures, hearing loss, and just general. You don't really want your brain to be inflamed, like generally speaking, not good.
No.
Pneumonia, eye inflammation, which can even lead to vision loss. And also if you're pregnant, you don't want anything to do with that. This has been correlated with poor pregnancy outcomes in general. I didn't really know much about what to look for measles transmission or symptoms because, for the most part, science has been like, we got it taken care of. We've got a really effective vaccine. But thought I would put a little health PSA out there for folks in case you weren't familiar, since it seems like it could be relevant again. A good time to look at your records and see if you got those 2 doses. So I have another fun health update for you all, which is that King County also published a bulletin that there has been one confirmed case of TM7. So it stands for Trichophyton mentagrophytes. So this is a fungus that can be transmitted via skin-to-skin contact, i.e. intimate contact. And there have been in the past outbreaks among gay men. It's basically like ringworm, but it is important to flag, which is why the Department of Health is trying to flag it, because you can't treat it with over-the-counter stuff. Like, you know how usually you get kind of like itchy ringworm, you're like, I'll just go get some topical stuff. Apparently, you have to take an oral antifungal medication for like 6 to 8 weeks to get rid of it. So if you got some itchy ringworm-like thing that isn't going away and you've had intimate contact with someone else who's had it, then maybe tell King County that you might have it. If there's one thing that we learned during the COVID era, it's that the people who will officially report it is going to be a much lower number than the instances out in the world, just because things transmit so quickly.
Yeah.
I think it was brilliant that they put the 7 in Roman numerals to make it look that much scarier.
Yeah.
Right. It's the VII situation. Yes. Yeah.
Jane, I truly appreciate your science and health corner. This is quite nice. Keeping me up to date.
Jane's transmitted disease corner, which I would love to never have to do again.
Sounds good.
If you're noticing people coughing around you, I feel like these days when I'm on public transit in the grocery store, that mask is on my face because I don't need all that, especially with the measles running around. I will note that even though the measles vaccine is incredibly effective, there have been a few breakthrough cases for people. So no vaccine's 100% effective. So stay safe out there, y'all. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to read some lovely listener emails. If you're enjoying the podcast, be sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen so you never miss an episode. Also, leave us a little review. It's really helpful. And tell your friends about us. You can also get more local news and events delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter. Just go to seattle.citycast.fm. And you can find us on Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok at CityCast Seattle. And you can watch full episodes of this show on YouTube. So this is a new feature I'm going to start calling Monday Mailbag. Mostly because it's alliterative and I love an alliterative segment title. And also because we've been really enjoying getting notes from you all with your thoughts on things. And please do feel free to write us. So, okay, first and maybe the most exciting, I remember putting out a call when we were talking about the millionaire's tax. And I was like, listen, if you're a millionaire and you have thoughts about this, I want to know. I was kind of joking. I wasn't sure how many millionaire listeners we had, but it turns out we have at least one. This person wrote in and said that this was kind of their background. They have a master's degree. They started working in tech in 2000. Their first full-time job paid something like $24,000 a year. Their partner also worked in tech. Between them, they were able to buy their first house in 2003 for the now unbelievably low price of $250,000. Wow.
Oh my God.
I love that for them, but not for me. Okay. They said, I was promoted over time and got my first job paying more than $100,000 in 2010. And in 2016, got a job at one of the big tech companies with a salary at about $150K plus bonuses and stock grants. I'm going to pause here and note, I've been reading a book about Amazon, and I did not know that the average salary at Amazon is $150K, at least was a few years ago. So interesting. I found myself in a specialized and somewhat essential role with a boss that appreciated my work, got promoted, got some extra stock grants, and in 2021, the last year that they worked there full time, their total compensation was a bit over $1 million, mostly from stock. And this person says, if I had stayed in that role, held my nose at the increasingly anti-democratic actions of the company, and had been lucky enough to avoid layoffs, I might be making that much every year. But they quit and they're no longer working in big tech. And they say, sure, I worked hard. Yeah, I had a relevant degree, but mostly it was luck. I ended up in a job that needed me badly and had a mechanism that would let them give me extra stock in a company that was screaming upwards during the early days of COVID. And I bought a house at the perfect time. Those opportunities aren't there now. Companies are laying people off, limiting opportunities, not hiring or promoting as many entry-level people. And there are no houses on the market for $250K with 3.5% interest. Oh my God, that makes me want to cry. The job market now is terrible compared to when I was younger. The millionaire's tax, this person says, is a way to make things slightly easier for people who are desperately trying to survive at the cost of what? Slightly less fancy countertops the next time you redo your kitchen in your second house. But I really
like this
appreciate.
person. Yeah, I like their perspective. It is really the only acceptable way to be when you lucked into this massive affluence. You just happened to be ready and bought a house at the right time. This is the attitude we should always be expecting from people that are this wealthy in our city. And if they're not that way, again, you can always move to Mercer Island or Bellevue.
I do think that it is really easy when you have found some kind of success, whether that's financial success or career success. I'm sure that some element of it is that obviously you worked hard. And I do think that people tend to discount just pure luck or timing. And so I appreciate that this person is like, hey, I just really... I got in at the right time.
It is nice that they outlined exactly like their trajectory, because when you're not a millionaire, it is kind of hard to even imagine, like, how could you possibly ever make that much money? And then like the stock of it all, if you had Amazon stock when it exploded, I imagine that helps quite a bit.
It also makes me think about how many relatively quiet millionaires there probably are in our midst. I mean, just statistically speaking, we know that that's the case. But I also feel like the general Seattle area is a place that really values being quiet about your money. Like, I feel like it is seen as much cooler to be quiet about your wealth. And so I appreciate when someone is like, hey, this is how it worked for me. And so thank you to this listener for writing in. They did not want us to use their name, but we really appreciate your perspective.
But hey, hit me up. I if you need anything, I'll draw some cartoons for you. I can do some light yard work.
Brett will send you feet pics.
Anything you
sure,
want.
Well, hey, let's put that out there.
You want.
All right, so moving on, we have another lovely message from our listener, David, in response to our tipping conversation from a couple weeks ago. So David wrote that he is sharing a few heuristics that make tipping less fraught for me and might be useful to us. In short, I try to think about how much a marginal dollar means to me versus what it would mean to the staff at the restaurant, bar, coffee shop, flower stand, and act accordingly. 1, if this is a non-traditional tipping situation, like the flower vendors at the Ballard Farmers Market, do I earn way more money than the people I will be tipping? If yes, leave a tip. 2, is the difference between 15% and 20%, or 18% and 25%, or whatever interval you're presented by the payment option, less than $2? If yes, just select the higher tip option. And 3, if I'm at a coffee shop, always tip $1 per drink, even if they are just pouring me a drip coffee. This does answer the question that I think some of us had, which was, if they're just doing a drip coffee, do we still gotta tip them? And I realize that subconsciously I do number 3 already, but I'm curious, you all agree with this philosophy
That's actually
of tipping?
validating. I thought because the options it gives me now, $1 is the lowest option. And honestly, that's what I usually go for. And I thought maybe am I lowballing? I don't know. Maybe I am still, but at least that person doesn't think so.
I feel like I always have like a 2 rule in my mind. So it's either $2 or 20%. Like I'm never going to be less than $2 and I'm never going to be less than 20%. Like I think I got coffee the other day and it was $5 and my options were $1, $2, and $3 as a tip. And so I just did $2 on, which is like a lot on $5. That's almost 50%. But I don't know. I don't mind paying $7 for a nice coffee.
Yeah, especially if like the barista seemed nice.
Yeah, they're good at their jobs.
I just always am like, girl, have $2 more. Like
they don't even have to be nice for me. In fact, surliness is actually I just assume that means they're going to pull good shots. If they can be that surly and still work in a coffee place, they're probably good at what they do.
That's true. If I'm a little bit afraid of you, maybe that's also like good motivation. It's like the 2 poles, right? Like you can't be in the middle. You got to be very nice or very mean.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Brett Hamill, thank you so much for joining us today.
Just going to head out and check my vaccine record for my entire life now.
Ashley Smith, are you going to do the same?
Yeah, I'm texting my mom right now.
That's all for today here at CityCast Seattle. I'm your host, Jane Sihu. Thank you again to our listeners for writing in. And listeners, remember that we love hearing from you all. If you all have news tips, questions, reactions to anything we talk about on the show, we love hearing from you all. Just email us at seattle@citycast.fm. You can also text us or leave us a voicemail on the CityCast hotline at 206-880-3931. And you got to do it because otherwise we're not going to have Mailbag Monday. We're not going to like make stuff up, you know?
We need you.
Until next time, see you, Seattle.